Obama says he hasn't yet made up his mind over whether to launch an assault on Syria, but insists the US is certain that Assad's forces were behind the use of chemical weapons. That's despite the fact that a UN team is still on the ground, asking for more time to finish conducting an investigation. Well, let's get more now on the tensions over the war-torn country. From RT's Gaine Chichakan, who's in Washington and joins us live now. Gaine, with an attack on Syria seemingly more likely, all eyes are on the US. How has Barack Obama addressed this issue of a possible intervention there?
Well, Kerry, of course, the main question is, will President Obama order an attack on Syria, despite the UN calls to hold fire, to wait for the results of the UN investigation, and as the UN Secretary General said, to give peace a chance. We hear the drums of war loud and clear in Washington. We know that the U.S. has aligned its warships along the Syrian border, preparing for a possible attack. And yet the president, when he sat down for an interview earlier this Wednesday, said, "I have not yet made the decision." From what he went on to say, one should not assume that there will be no strikes. Take a listen.
I have gotten options. We can take limited, tailored approaches, not getting drawn into a long conflict, not a repetition of Iraq, which I know a lot of people are worried about. But if we are saying in a clear and decisive but very limited way, we send a shot across the bow saying, stop doing this, that can have a positive impact on our national security over the long term, and may have a positive impact in the sense that chemical weapons are not used again on innocent civilians.
Of course, it begs the question, what's a tailored, limited approach in an environment of a violent civil war where you have sides blaming each other for horrible crimes that have been and are being committed in Syria? UN inspectors are in the country now investigating the attack that happened a week ago. The US, the UK, and France have basically brushed off in advance any results of that UN investigation. They basically discredited the UN fact-finding mission and said they know best what happened. And here is President Obama, what he said about the evidence that they have.
We have looked at all the evidence, and we do not believe the opposition possessed nuclear weapons of that, or chemical weapons of that sort. We do not believe that, given the delivery systems using rockets, that the opposition could have carried out these attacks. We have concluded that the Syrian government, in fact, carry these out. And if that's so, then there need to be international consequences.
That's the unilateral approach, basically, that Russia and China are opposed to. They say the UN Security Council should not consider a resolution and action on Syria before the UN inspector team reports on the chemical weapons use. But the US and the UK have indicated that they're ready to go about this without a UN mandate. And important to note, the UN investigation will not determine who used chemical weapons, only whether they were used. And Syria says it wants the UN to also investigate who carried out the attacks, and not just whether they were carried out. We heard this Wednesday the Syrian ambassador to the UN say Syria has requested a UN investigation into, quote, 3 more locations where the Syrian soldiers inhaled the nerve gas, he said, last week on the outskirts of Damascus. And previously, Syria also requested an investigation into the March attacks in Khan al-Assal, where chemical weapons were used, and with evidence indicating that they were used by the rebels. But the U.S. and its allies have shunned the evidence and generally ignored those attacks. It seems at this point, calls to investigate and to give diplomacy a chance are falling on deaf ears in the U.S. But one should also remember that before every U.S. intervention in the last 15 years, there was a hype of lies, misinformation, and discrepancies. And every time Washington would present its case for war as the ultimate truth, leading people to believe that waging war was the only way to peace. Here's my report.